telling you to rotate your phone a certain way?
Rotate your phone. You can't. Try
Oh,
another
it will
way.
always be this way because it's not moving.
It has
with
to
you.
be this way.
Do you have the lock on it? Well, we'll just do this way.
Try another way of going live during your podcast. We're live. We're live.
I have a notification.
All right, we're back in. All right, gang. My name is Matt McCrory. I'm one of the investors here, and I'm on the Tim Stout group. Today, we're going to be going over mindset, perspective, and just overall success, and like what those two things can interact with success. So, these for me have been the biggest game changers in my life, in my business, my relationships, and it was all on mindset and perspective, how I viewed things. So I'm going to explain that a little bit by opening up with a little story. Once upon a time, Matt was in 3rd grade, and I remember I did really good memorizing these spelling words or whatever, so I was put in a spelling bee just for this year. And was put in there, and they were going over the rules, and they were like, all right, students, well, I'm going to give you a word, and it's going to be like this, frog. Spell frog. And then you say frog, and then you spell the word, F-R-O-G, frog. If you do something like this will disqualify you. Frog, F-R-O-G, you're disqualified. And my mind focused on that, and the rest was like Charlie Brown, like wah, 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 wah. And I was like, that would be so embarrassing if you know how to spell the word and you just make a little slip up and then you don't do it. So I was like kind of in the back, we're like on like a theater seating type thing, and we're like all sitting down, or like seated, and then they stand up as you go. So they're like, the first round is easy, so everyone's going around, they're spelling like Bill and Ball and Jerry or whatever, right? They're going through the whole thing. In my mind, I'm just focused on, do not make that mistake. That would be so embarrassing. That would be so embarrassing. Please don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Do that. I hope it's not hard. What if it's a hard word? And I'm going through, and I'm thinking of every worst case scenario. Well, they get to me, and they're like, all right, Matt, your word is kick. I was like, I know how to spell kick. This is great. So I stand up, and I'm like, in my head, right before I spoke, I said, hey, don't be dumb and say C. And I said, kick, C, I mean K-I-C-K. And I said, disqualified. That's exactly where my mind went. I focused on the negative outcome, and I just dwelled on it, and I dwelled on it, and I dwelled on it, and I was like, don't let it happen, and it's the very thing that happened. Now, if you're being honest, while you're listening, you most likely were like, oh my gosh, I've done that before. I've been in a situation where I said, don't do this thing, and I focused on the thing I could not do, whether you're learning how to ride a bike, and there's only one pole, and then a football field radius around you, and that's the thing, don't run into that, and you run into it. Everybody's seen America's Funniest Home Videos, and you see the kid do that, you see the kid learning how to drive. What you focus on is what you will find. So, in other words, what you look for is the very thing that you will find. If you are looking for the negative outcome in life, in your business, in your circumstances, that will be the very thing that you will find. That's just it. If you're focused on that, that's where you're going to go. Where your attention is where your whole body will follow. If you're turning on a motorcycle, if you look down, you're going to have a very small turn. When you take a big turn, you look way over there, because that's where you're going, and the bike moves a lot more fluid, and you have a much sharper turn. Where you're focused is where you will go. So, if that is negative thoughts, that's most likely the path you're going to end up going down. Whether this is bad decisions, whether this is bad buyers, bad sellers, bad relationships, oftentimes we're looking in that direction, and that's the very thing we find. But the good news is there's the flip side of it, is we have good buyers, good sellers, good deals, good relationships. If that's the thing that you're looking for, I truly believe that you will find it. And I'm such a believer in this, because I'll give 2 examples. One real quick, we had a nice little TV in our house, and I would always sit down and be like, this is a great TV, but I would love a bigger TV. And everybody would say, we don't need a bigger TV. This is a fine TV. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. We don't need to spend money on a TV if we already have one that works. And I would think like, well, if I could just find one, a better TV, or find like a good deal. And she's like, no way you're gonna find that. And I just kept thinking, it'd be so cool if I could just find one, find your TV. And I'm thinking this for like months, and then eventually I pull up in the place where I'm renting, and I look to the left, and there is a huge TV, like leaned against the dumpster. And I was like, no way. So I like run out of the car, and I'm like, ugh. I pull it in the garage, and I'm like, it has to be broken. I'm like, maybe I can fix it. I plug it in, it works fine. What? So then I put it upstairs, I buy a $10 remote, and it works fine. That's our TV today. My mind was like, I'm gonna find this great TV, and everyone was like, yeah, right, that's crazy. And I found it. And then a more important example here is about 2 months before I met Ariel, I remember telling my college roommate exactly the type of woman that I was looking for. And I was like, listing off everything, blah, 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 this has to be this. And it was so like, so detailed, my buddy said, you'll never find that. You're the pickiest guy I've ever met. That was the thing. So I talked to a lot of guys about this. You're the pickiest guy I've ever met to have that many things that you want. And I was like, no, that's just the stuff I want. And it wasn't like, she's gotta look like this or whatever. It was things of importance of what I wanted in a life partner. And he says, that's too crazy, it's too detailed. That's exactly what I found. How I found her is like by crazy circumstances. But that's exactly what my mind was focused on. That's exactly what I was praying for, what I was just fixated on, and that's what I found. So I truly, truly believe this with all of my heart. With that is where your mind is. Your mind is crazy, crazy strong. And now if you can identify with me, wow, the mind is powerful, my next word of advice is be careful. Be careful. So the mind is very powerful. We identified that. We talked about the negative outlook on life, the positive outlook on life. So with that, be careful what you entertain in your mind. Be careful the thoughts that you entertain. What kind of thoughts are going on? What kind of thoughts are you wrestling with? These thoughts that you roll over and over in your head, whether it's insecurity, am I good enough, am I this, am I that, is it positive, is it negative? Those thoughts will manifest themselves in your reality, one way or another. Number two, you need to be careful who is influencing your thoughts. So what thoughts are going on in your head, and then how are they getting there? Who's putting those in your head? Don't let somebody come, you have your dream and you're saying your dream. Don't let a thought enter into your mind that someone else put there. Don't let them pluck up your little tree by the roots just because they've given up on their dreams and their goals and they're going to manifest their insecurities on you. So be careful with who's bringing those into your mind. And then also, you need to make sure that if you're hanging around that negativity, you need to remove yourself from that and identify where it's coming from. So that's connected there. And then the third one, be careful what comes out of your mouth. So what is coming into your mind will eventually come out of your mouth, and what is eventually what you will do with your hands. Right? What you think about, what you talk about, is what you will do. If these are negative things, if this is always tearing people down, if this is always looking for the worst in life, that is what you will manifest in your reality with these guys here. Right? But if it's the opposite, it's positive, you will have a better outcome. So, what I say about that is, even in play, you don't need to be dogging yourself. Because I believe there's a kernel of truth in there that is an insecurity that you're spitting out, right? Well, I'm not good enough to get that deal because I'm pretty new. They probably go with some more experience. Well, I'm just stupid. I can never figure this out. I'm not good enough. That kind of stuff hooks onto you, and it is like it's weighed. So at first it doesn't hurt that much, right? Because you're just putting in a little bit of that negativity on. Then it's a little bit more. Then it's a little bit more. It's a little bit more. Until you have a crippling amount of negativity on you. And you're like, how did this get here? It happened by the things that you're saying, that you're putting into your path. You're putting it on you, and it's weighing you down. So be careful with what you're saying about yourself, what you're saying about others, and how you examine a situation. If you're always the person showing up into a room and be like, oh, and pointing out every negative flaw of everybody's plan, then you look at yourself, right? If you're the person that you come into a situation and it's a great, oh my gosh, this is awesome, everyone's happy, and you're like, well, what's the catch? And you're looking at that, right? That doesn't mean be like, pie in the sky, everything's perfect, I'm a realist, as some negative people will say, right? You have to have that balance, but be sure to be careful with what you're saying, right? So now we understand the power of the mind. We need to just be very, very careful with what we're letting in, what we're wrestling with, and then what is coming out of our mouth. Scripture even talks about this a little bit, where people were like, oh, you can't eat that, and then they're like, don't so much what comes into a man's mouth that defiles him as what comes out of your mouth, because that is what you're talking about, that's what you're thinking about, that's what you truly believe. So be careful what you're saying. So you're like, Matt, I buy it. I understand. Mindset, the mind, it is powerful. You probably have kind of figured out where you are on the scale, right? There's the scale of some people, I believe, are naturally just disposed to be very positive. Some people are naturally just kind of negative Nancy. Some people, maybe life has thrown them into that, to where they're like, well, I was a positive person until this crappy stuff happened, so now I'm negative. So therefore, I'm going to be here. So you've identified yourself on the scale, but there's really no fruit in being negative. So either way, and even if you're like, well, I'm naturally positive, you can always be more positive, more uplifting. So, now that you've figured that out, Matt, what do? How do I increase my mindset to where I am healthier, to where I can look at a situation and find the positive situation here, right? Well, that's great. Those are my next 3 points here. Right? So, one of the things that David Kesey talks about, which David Kesey is a real estate coach, right, real estate agent coach out in California. He actually coaches Tim Stapp, who is my coach. So my coach and then my coach's coach, who also coaches me, this is one of the things that he says constantly. Have a mind that is open to everything and attached to nothing. So have a mind when you're going into a deal, when you're going into anything, when you're going into life, that's open to every possibility. Right? When somebody gives me a problem, what's happening? How can I figure this out? But I'm ultimately not attached to the outcome, because I cannot control the outcome no matter what I do. I can control the middle part of how I handle the problem, the solutions I put forth, how I communicate, how I guide people, who I bring into the equation. But ultimately, I can do all that, and it can do a 180. I can't control the outcome. So I focus on what I can control. Okay? So I have a mind that's open to everything and then attached to nothing. Okay? So one of those things too with how to make that a reality is each day you wake up, you realign yourself. You do this with prayer, meditation, if you're mad, I'm not a spiritual person, whatever, just think, right? Meditate. You're meditating, you're praying, but what are you meditating and praying about? And you're just going to be like, oh, I guess I'm here. It is absolutely vital that you bring gratitude into each day. So when you start each day, you're grateful. Now, you're grateful about everything that you're grateful for in your life. You stop and you're like, okay, I'm grateful for my family, I'm grateful for my friends, I'm grateful for my job. I know it can be hard here, but I can do this or I can do that, and I'm grateful that I met these people because they led me to these people. And we stop and we think about what we are grateful for. And then I like to go down a little bit further. I stop and I think about where I've come from. So this was a very, very common practice in the Old Testament, especially in the Psalms. You'll read it all the time. God's people will say, God, this isn't fair. God, you're far from me. Your people are being destroyed. The righteous are being oppressed. The wicked are being raised. This doesn't seem good. I don't like this. But I know you're good. But why? Because of what you've done in my life and what you've done in the life of my family. You brought us out of Egypt. You brought us out of slavery. You've brought us out of the wilderness and preserved us there, and you brought us to the promised land. So we stop and we think about in our lives of where we've come from and what we were thinking in those moments, right? Remember that deal that you couldn't get closed, you couldn't figure it out, it was all going to explode, and what happened? It closed anyway? Oh yeah. Or it was that deal that was crazy, it wasn't going to close, and then it didn't close? You're still here. You made it. You're okay. Be attached to nothing and open to everything, right? So the same thing, we have to remember to practice this at a little bit at a time, because it's easy to say this, but it's very hard to practice this, honestly. So we have to remember the little things that happened that made us to where we are, because these things that there was no way out, we couldn't get past it, you got past it. We couldn't get past it, we got past it. It made you who you are today and built you up to where you were. It's like working out. It doesn't feel good, right? You're like, ow, it's muscles ripping and repairing. But ultimately, after the rips and the repair, you're now stronger than where you were. So, the next little guy here. Practice this each and every day of being grateful for where you are in meditation and prayer. Whether this is a quiet time of 15 minutes, whether you want to do this with the Lord and you're sitting and think, Lord, thank you for bringing me here, or whether you're just sitting by yourself and you're imagining where you've come from, be grateful in the day. And then number 2 is look forward to your failures. This is hard. This is easy to say, this is hard. Because oftentimes in society, you're taught if you fail, give up, try something else. Oh, you tried that once? Oh, stop. That didn't work out. Go back and do this. So many people are so weird if you're like, yeah, I failed 3 times, I'm trying it again. What? Why? Just give up. Try something else. Go down the path of least resistance. Look forward to failures, because guess what? The more you fail, the more you learn, if you have the right mindset. Right? So in life, you get to choose whether that you are losing or you're learning. If you walk away from a situation, this deal blew up, like this was crazy, the other agent was crazy, the buyer was crazy, the seller was crazy, and you start pointing fingers and it was everybody else's fault. I was perfect though. Everyone else was crazy to me. Right? You lost. You didn't get to stop and think, okay, how could I handle that better? Because people will always be crazy. But you can't control that. What can you control? Okay, I can control how I delivered that news. Okay? Maybe if I do this up front, and then again, and then follow up with an email, ooh, that would have done it. Are you learning, or are you just blaming others? No, right? We're learning through it, and every time you fail, you get to learn. That brings you that much closer to being that much more successful in your life, in your business, in your relationships, everything. So look forward to failure. And again, this is hard. This is something that I heard early on from Tim, from David, and I was like, yeah, look forward to failure. Nobody looks forward to failure, because you failed. You tried your best, and it fell apart. But when it happens is when you have to stop and you think, okay, God, what did you teach me? Okay, what did I learn? Okay, where can I be better? And they have extreme ownership. This is something that me and Tim talk about constantly, is extreme ownership. If there's something that I screw up completely, Tim will still be like, yeah, it was my fault. I'm like, how was it your fault? He's like, I should have told you about it. I'm like, how? It's because he owns it. So I've done that in myself. If something happens, it's my knee-jerk to be like, it was your fault. It was your fault. It was your turn to do this. So there, you did it. Instead of being like, it was my fault. I should have done this. Okay, so we practice this little bits at a time. Right? So you spill your coffee, small failure. Why did you spill your coffee? What did you learn? Oh, I know. Let's make 2 trips instead of 1 big trip with 1,000 things in my hands. Right? Oh, you cracked your new iPhone? Are you going to be mad about it and cry? Or are you going to learn, which is buy the OtterBox, right? Buy the case, because the phone will crack. Okay? So practice these, stopping and thinking like, okay, what did I learn? Because in life you get to choose. I learned this a ton in jiu-jitsu. And the Tim Stout group is weird because we have a retired MMA fighter as our main business coach. We have me, who's hugged dudes in pajamas doing jiu-jitsu for 10 plus years. Joey's done jiu-jitsu for a long time in kickboxing. So we're all in the martial arts world. In the martial arts world, if you go and you conquer everybody, that's fun for a little bit, and then it becomes boring, and then you stop learning. When you really start learning is when you get somebody who beats the dog crap out of you, and you're like, oh wow, this is what it's like to be at this level, and you get beat up, and you get beat up, and you get beat up, and you start learning faster and faster, right? So you get to choose if you want to walk away with your lips stuck out, oh, I got beat up, or you walk away with a new perspective of how you can be better for the next time, okay? So, now we also, with practicing this daily, right, and throughout life, it's easy to say like have positive mindset, right, and have positive thoughts and cast out negativity, but how do you do that each and every day? Because you can't just flip a switch. Everybody knows humans, it takes about 7 to 10 days to build a habit, okay? So you can say this now, but if you don't practice it, it will never happen. And how do we practice it? If you have a negative thought, you capture it immediately. So first you have to identify it. Number 2, so we capture it, we throw it out, replace it with something positive. Okay? So it's the same thing. Man, I'm so stupid, this deal was so stupid. Right? They did this, I'm so dumb. You gotta just throw it out. Okay. We'll get through this. And then once I fix it, it'll be better or something, right? We're putting a positive spin on it. Okay, this is good. It's good that this happened now, so that we can terminate now, and I can get them into the next house. No, this is good. This is a win, right? reframing your mind of this is a good thing. This is something that I need to do. This is something that's perfect. This is, I'm so happy this happened, right? We're pushing into that. And then we're also identifying where it came from, right? Where did the negativity come from? Because a lot of times, if you don't stop and truly think about your circumstances, your environment, many of us are soaking in a sea of negativity, and we don't even know it, right? We think we're positive people, we think we're this, and then you just stop and listen to the people around you when you have good news, and you're like, wow, they crapped all over that. They tore that down completely. They didn't lift me up at all in that. Maybe that's why I'm done. So now you're starting to see where it's coming from. When you start to connect the dots, now you're starting to see, okay, what's going on? And you need to take steps to remove yourself from those people. As that family people, just because they're in your family does not mean they have permission to speak in every part of your life. Right? I do not go to certain people in my family for business advice. They don't know how to run a business. I do not go to certain people in my life and ask, hey, how do you do a bunch of math equations? We don't do math super well. I'm going to talk to an accountant, right? I'm not going to ask them about stock advice, right? I'm going to talk to the stockbroker. We talk to people in our lives who we give permission to speak into. So if people want to speak negatively into our personal lives, just let them know, hey, that's okay, but we're just focusing on positivity here. I will ask you if I need your opinion, yeah? So, that goes into my next point, which is talking about the sea of negativity. We have to remove ourselves from our negative circle and place ourselves into a positive one. Because here is the truth. You can have a changed mindset. You can be on fire from this. You can read some mindset books. You can have some coaching. And you can be like, this is it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be so positive. It's going to change my life. And you're going to be so excited. Oh, did it die? Oh, no, there it goes. And I'm going to be so excited. I'm going to do this. This is great. I can't wait. And then you go back into your negative environment. You might last for a week or so, but eventually you will conform to your environment. You can come back all, and then as soon as, if you're followed by a thundercloud looking like Eeyore all the time, eventually you're going to conform to the Eeyores around you, right? So we have to identify the people that we are around, because it's just like your mama used to tell you, you are who you hang out with, right? So if you're around a bunch of people who have no aspirations, they're very negative, as soon as you bring up something great, they're going to find the one thing that's wrong with it. It's time to find a new friend group. It's time to find a new circle to be in, and one that when you say something, they're like, that's awesome, I can't wait, I bet you can do it, no problem, and you're like, I can do it, this is great. There's so much negativity in the world, we don't need to be saturated in it. We need a break. That's why when people meet positive people, they're like, can I just talk to you just for like 30 minutes? Because this is crazy, I've never met someone like you. Because the world is so negative. What sells? Turn on the news. How many positive stories are you seeing? How many people recovering from corona? No, it's just, killing millions, right? It's all negative, negative, negative. There's something sick in us that wants to hear that negative stuff, but it's poison, right? So we run the positive, and ultimately, we've all seen this, unfortunately, in this area, and I had a buddy in Houston who struggled with drugs, right? He'd go to detox, he'd go to rehab, he'd get out, ready to go. He'd go right back to his friend groups that used, and he would be right back in a month. He'd do the same thing. And he would be right back where he was. It wasn't until he completely removed himself from his friend group that he was actually able to stay sober. It's the same thing with positivity and negativity here. So be mindful of your surroundings. Stop and take a look at who's around you. Are they giving you life, or are they taking away from you? Are they people that are celebrating your wins, or are they a bunch of mosquitoes who are sucking the blood out of you? All right, be mindful in that. So that brings me to my conclusion here. I've heard so many success stories from people in this office, from coaches that coach me to coach my coach to people who are successful online. But this is the thing that will change your life 100%, and it's changing your mindset and changing your perspective. If you want more joy in life, change your mindset, change your perspective. If you want to have a more satisfying marriage, change your mindset, change your perspective. If you want a better business, change your mindset, change your perspective. Okay? And I mean, as we go through this, again, just to reiterate that your mindset and your mind and your thoughts and how you view the world is how you view reality. So what you're thinking about and how you think directly interacts with your reality. Okay? So your mindset will change your life for the better or for the worse. So be sure you're in a good spot. And then my last one here. We're all in this together. Isn't that a song? We're all in this together, right? But as true Northers here, right? As advisors of the true North, okay? This is seriously, we are a family. We are lifting each other up here. We want to see you succeed here. Not just in business, but in your personal life, with your families, in your relationships. I don't want to hear negative talk about you, negging yourself, right? We can be playful and things like that. We have to remember that we're building each other up, helping each other get to a better space. We all want to see you succeed, and we are all here for you, like I said, business related or not. And we mean that 100% from the bottom of our hearts. So, that is today's lesson, just a little bit of a boost on mindset, and I hope you found it helpful. I know a lot of you guys are out running around and working hard. I hope you can stop and watch this guy on Facebook Live here. Thank you, Karen, for being behind the camera. And yeah, see ya.